Why don't we start this hearing? Maybe because I need a hearing notice. I'm calling to order this hearing. This is a public hearing of the Committee of the Whole of the Council of the District of Columbia. I'm Phil Mendelson, Chairman of the Council and Chair of the Committee of the Whole. Today is Thursday, October 6, 2022. The time is 10:54 in the morning. And this hearing is on Bill 24-81, entitled the Financial Literacy Education in Schools Amendment Act of 2021. This legislation was introduced by at-large Councilmember Robert White and co-introduced with, if I remember correctly, 10 other council members, introduced on February 18th, 2021. Financial literacy is the knowledge and skill to make informed and effective decisions with one's financial resources to achieve lifetime financial security. The purpose of Bill 24-81 is to establish a pilot financial literacy elective course in District of Columbia Public Schools for 11th and 12th grade students. This 2-year pilot course would cover various financial topics, including but not limited to financial institutions, credit history, credit scores, retirement saving, investing, predatory lending practices, and the basic principles of Social Security. That's a quick outline of the legislation. I thought it was important that we have this hearing on the bill and more broadly on the topic of teaching financial literacy to our youth. I've come to increasingly appreciate the importance of financial literacy and recognizing that there are many people, many adults, who don't understand these issues, such as those I just read: credit scores, predatory lending practices, and so forth. So that's what this hearing is about. The record in this matter will be open for 2 weeks. That is, the record will close at 5 p.m. on Thursday, October 20th, 2022. And what I mean by that is we're required to file a record of the hearing, and we need a cutoff date to do that. So 2 weeks from now, if anyone wants their statement that they didn't make today or additional information that they want to provide after today, they have 2 weeks to do so. I'm going to recognize my colleague in just a second. We have 15 witnesses who signed up timely, and they will be followed by three government witnesses. And with that, maybe we can let the witnesses in, and I'll call their names in a moment, but let me recognize Councilmember White.
Thank you, Chairman, and pardon the background noise if you hear, but I really want to thank you for holding a hearing on Bill 24-81, the Financial Literacy Education in Schools Amendment Act of 2021. I first introduced this bill last council period and reintroduced it in February 2021, along with 10 of our colleagues. I'm grateful to have a second opportunity to hear from witnesses and to highlight the importance of financial literacy, particularly for young people. None of us instinctively know how to budget, invest, use credit, and prepare financially for college, the workforce, or retirement. I had mentors in my life who helped me navigate how best to manage my finances, and I feel fortunate that I can pass that knowledge down to younger family members entering adulthood. We all need that guidance. My goal with this legislation is to make sure DC students get that knowledge early on while in the classroom, because they will need it for the rest of their lives. But so many young people are learning in the reactive financial consequences instead of the proactive financial preparation. I had my own experience as a college student with a credit card that had a 20% interest rate. That was a difficult and expensive lesson, although not at all unique. Every 2 years, the Council for Economic Education completes a survey to assess the state of economic and financial education in grades K through 12 across all 50 states and the District of Columbia. The 2022 survey of the states shows that 47 states include personal finance education as part of their K through 12 standards. DC is not one of them, nor is DC one of 27 states that requires high schools to offer personal finance as a course. nor is DC one of 23 states that mandates personal finance education for students either as a standalone course or integrated into another course. A 2017 report card by the Champlain College Center for Financial Literacy gave the district an F on effective integration of financial literacy into our high school curriculum, placing DC in the bottom fifth of the country. Our neighboring jurisdictions, Maryland and Virginia, received B and A grades respectively. DC can do better, and we have already taken some steps toward improving our financial literacy education. In 2018, in the wake of the Great Recession, Council passed the Financial Literacy Council Establishment Act of 2008, which charged our education agencies with developing a plan to establish and implement a financial literacy education program for high school students. The Financial Literacy Council published reports in 2014 and 2021 recommending that DC integrate financial literacy in DC public schools curriculum at all grade levels and include financial literacy course as a high school graduation requirement. The mayor has also said she wants to help children become more financially literate based on requests she has heard from parents, and the agency testimonies today highlight that same desire. My bill, the Financial Literacy Education in Schools Amendment Act, begins putting these recommendations into practice and is timely in the midst of significant global events and the resulting financial struggles among working class families. The legislation will create a financial literacy elective course for 11th and 12th grade students in all DCPS high schools, with the potential to expand to public charter schools and lower grades. The elective course will instruct students on the basics of personal finance and will cover topics including saving, investing, interest, credit, household budgeting, taxes, and college financing and financial aid. With this bill, I hope to catch the district up to the rest of the nation by providing financial literacy education as part of our high school curriculum. I understand that a new high school elective alone won't fix the economic inequities in the district. DC has one of the highest costs of living in the United States and a poverty rate that surpasses the national average. Understanding finances does not automatically enable someone to rise out of poverty, but ongoing financial education is a necessary piece of this puzzle. There are young people growing up in DC whose families have no savings, no credit or bad credit, no or few assets, and no investments. Let's do all that we can. Let's do all that we can so they learn these lessons in the classroom rather than through personal experience. A financially literate district will lead to a more economically stable city, with residents less likely to fall prey to predatory practices that push them further behind. I was glad to see in DCPS's written testimony that after the hearing on the 2019 version of this bill, DCPS continued its efforts to incorporate financial literacy into our K through 12 classrooms. I look forward to learning more about how this legislation could increase the scope of those efforts, and I'm open to the agency's thoughts on which education agency could most appropriately evaluate the effectiveness of the pilot. I want to thank the organizations that worked with my office on the 2019 legislation, including Capital Area Asset Builders, the DC Association of Realtors, and Wealth Care Financial Group. I also want to thank those who testified at the November 2019 hearing and the witnesses who are here to testify today who plan to submit written testimony, including teachers, students, former members of the Financial Literacy Council, and Next Gen Personal Finance. Lastly, thank you to the members of the Financial Literacy Council for your recommendations. Unfortunately, I'm chairing a hearing in the committee I chair, Committee on Government Operations and Facilities, this afternoon, so I will not be able to stay for the duration of this hearing. I will, however, review all the testimonies, and I look forward to passing this legislation so our students can obtain the life tools and skills they need to succeed. Again, Chairman, thank you for accommodating this hearing into what is a busy schedule for the Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Councilmember White. So let me call the witnesses. Christian Sherrill is Director of Advocacy at Next Gen Personal Finance. Ariel Johnson, who's Executive Director of the DC Charter School Alliance. Josh Boots, who's with Empower K-12. Salim Adolfo, who is Chair of Advisory Neighborhood Commission 8C. Marcus Mitchell, who's a teacher, NAF Academy of Finance at KIPP DC College Preparatory High School. John Bratsakis, who's with the Maryland DC Credit Union Association. Jemiah Bradley, who's a college student and a graduate of KIPP DC. Kunyi Booth, who's principal of Friendship Tech Prep. Susan Destronson, who is listed as Career in Tech Ed of PGCPS. John Pratsakis, whom I already called, so that's a duplicate. Anthony Graham, who is chair of the DC Association of Realtors Public Policy Committee. Joseph Vaughn, who's former chair of the DC Financial Literacy Council. Jeff Banks, who is chair of the DC Financial Literacy Council and also vice president of United Bank. Natural Premier, who is a graduate of DC Public Charter Schools, and Ed Lazier. And since I added his name by hand, I can't say his affiliation at the moment. If you all can be let in. I think I indicated that the hearing notice said 4 minutes. So if you're in gallery view, you ought to be able to see the clock at the top of your screen. Mr. Sherrill, you're first, and why don't you begin? Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you, Chairman Mendelson. Nice to see you. Nice to see you, Councilman White. It's been a few years since we last spoke, but very excited. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of Bill 24-81 today. First, I would like to invite everyone to ponder. What do you wish you learned more about in high school? If you're anything like me, and 80% of the adults that were recently surveyed by the National Endowment for Financial Education, you're thinking that learning about money, careers, and professional skills in school would have been really useful. I often wonder myself, had I had access to a personal finance course in high school, would I have made better money decisions? Would I have found less costly alternatives to the nearly $100,000 in student debt I amassed just as an undergraduate? The bill you're considering today will help DCPS high schoolers rehearse these life-changing, life-altering decisions before they make them for real. I'm advocating today from the NGPF Mission 2030 Fund, which is affiliated with Next Gen Personal Finance. NGPF is a national nonprofit whose personal finance curriculum is used by over 70,000 teachers, reaching over 3 million students nationwide. Importantly, all of NGPF is free and always will be. In the district alone, 130 teachers are using NGPF's curriculum, and 37 of these great educators have participated in over 1,100 hours of professional development with us. So it's clear that DCPS educators are eager to engage students in personal finance lessons. But the school district says that fewer than half of the high schools currently offer a standalone personal finance course. In practice, this means embedding, right? It means that most teachers are sort of pigeonholing these skills and lessons into other related courses whenever they have time. Establishing a standalone personal finance course gives teachers the space and time they need to teach these skills comprehensively rather than piecemeal whenever they've got the time. And by the way, teachers are really, really busy. Many of the largest districts in the nation are now offering a roadmap for prioritizing standalone personal finance courses with free resources and free professional development from ours and other nonprofits. We recently received a grant in September from Michael Jordan, like number 23, one of the greatest of all time, Michael Jordan, to expand personal finance courses in 6 of the nation's largest majority minority school districts. And this expansion followed our partnerships with PG County. your neighbors there, which is even going a step further to make personal finance a graduation requirement. So this can be done, and it, in my opinion, must be done in a standalone fashion. In the last 3 years, the number of states guaranteeing a personal finance course standalone for all high schoolers has tripled from 5 states, including Virginia, to 15 states today. By the time all of these states implement their guarantees, the percent of high school students required to take a personal finance course will skyrocket to 40%, up from 16% just a few years ago. In closing, I return to my opening question. What do you wish you learned more about in high school? And what will you do about it today to help DCPS high schoolers learn about it before they reach the real world? Thank you for allowing me to provide testimony today.
Thank you, Mr. Sherrill. Next is Ariel Johnson, who is Executive Director of the DC Charter School Alliance.
Good morning, Chairman Mendelson and Councilmember White. My name is Ariel Johnson. I'm the new Executive Director of the DC Charter School Alliance, the local nonprofit that advocates on behalf of public charter schools to ensure that every student can receive a high-quality public education that prepares them for lifelong success. I am grateful to work with the council and our partners across the city to achieve these goals. Charter school leaders care deeply about ensuring students are well equipped with the tools they need to be financially literate in the modern world. Leaving high school with basic financial literacy skills is critical to creating the conditions necessary for our students to have the lives they want and deserve. I know that personally, a financial literacy class would have dramatically altered my worldview. Almost 20 years after high school, I can still explain that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, but I didn't know how to balance the checkbook until well into my 20s. Separately, as a first-generation college student, if I had truly understood interest rates, I might not be working through heaps of student loan debt like so many of my peers. We know that teaching financial literacy is important now more than ever, particularly as we continue to address the stark inequities of the pandemic. More importantly, we know there's a staggering wealth gap between Black and white families. Last year, a report from the Council Office of Racial Equity revealed that the median net worth for a white household is 81 times the median net worth of a Black household in the district. As advocates, as community members, we are charged with doing everything we can to ensure students have the tools they need to achieve not only financial security, but financial freedom. We greatly appreciate the council's attention to this matter, and while we agree the work is crucial, I also want to elevate a couple potential implementation challenges our school leaders have elevated. First, our school leaders have shared with us that some of our most vulnerable students are struggling to fit in the existing course loads required to graduate. They urge you to make sure that in the future, when these literacy standards are adopted, schools have the flexibility to either create a standalone course or incorporate the standards into existing courses, as many of our high schools have done. Second, we urge the council to consider what skills and expertise will be required to teach financial literacy. If the expertise will require additional staffing resources, then we should all think about the challenges around educator recruitment. The council could also consider universally available opportunities, such as developing an online curriculum open to all students from every school. This would not only address difficulties in recruiting our qualified teachers, but would provide more schedule flexibility to our students. So as you move forward with this bill, we urge you to ensure that our leaders have opportunities to participate, to help in the development of financial literacy standards with the SBOE. Moving forward, I want to once again, thank you, Council, for considering ways to help students prepare for lifelong success. That's a goal we all share. Charter school leaders are ready to work with you and the SBOE to ensure that every student has the tools they need to make effective, smart financial decisions for themselves and their families after graduation. Thank you for your time, and I welcome your questions.
Well, let me ask staff, am I coming across as frozen?
Mr. Chairman, you froze for a moment, but you're back now. So I think we should be all set.
Okay, my apologies for that. Josh Boots, you're next.
Good morning, Chairman Mendelson, Councilmember White, and staff. I testify this morning as an educator and DC resident, not my official capacity as Empower K-12's executive director. Addressing the leading indicators of the cycle of poverty is part of my life's mission. Family wealth, or the lack thereof, should not be the primary determinant of the social and professional opportunities available to our young scholars. Ending the cycle of poverty requires a multifaceted approach, and I applaud the council for tackling one component of an effective strategy, which is financial literacy for all. One thing I've learned from DC's bold schools, those schools who serve high percentages of students designated as at risk, where reading and math proficiency exceed expectations, is that students benefit when educators provide multiple access points to rigorous content via a variety of contexts that are tailored to their interests. A lesson we should apply to when and how we educate our students about financial literacy by starting early and often with cross-disciplinary units on finance. When I was a DCPS 7th grade math teacher, oh my gosh, 20 years ago, my job was to ensure mastery of fractions, decimals, and percents, exposing students to deeper algebraic thinking. I quickly learned from my students' interest in money and wealth that deviating from the early 2000s curriculum by embedding pre-algebra skills in novel real-world financial scenarios was a winning move. Something that we should be thoughtful about in terms of incorporating financial literacy into math, into history as we move forward. A better approach to ensuring that all students have the financial literacy skills required is by embedding those topics, like the ones written in the draft legislation, throughout the student's secondary academic career, starting in 6th grade, making sure that every year that there is some amount, that we're not waiting till an optional 11th or 12th grade course. DCBS's testimony outlines an excellent strategy, in my opinion, but I also believe we must measure the things that matter, including whether our graduating high schoolers have the financial literacy tools to thrive in their adult life. Legislation that moves this work forward could require the state board to adopt financial literacy standards through a process like the recent effective work on history standards by the end of fiscal year 2024. It could also ask OSSE to design an assessment and statewide reporting cadence on our students' financial literacy skills. I don't see this being an assessment we administer every year across multiple grade levels, nor is it something we would use for school accountability. Instead, much like how NAEP subject matter tests that are outside of math and reading are conducted every few years, we could assess a subset of our students every once in a while to ensure that we are monitoring the progress in this area over time, because it is that important, and it should be all of our students. Thank you, council members, for elevating this important conversation and having lend my time and thought partnership about modified legislation that continues to move this important work forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boots. Commissioner Rodolfo? I do not see him here. Salim Adolfo, we're going to move to Marcus Mitchell.
Hi, how you all doing, Council?
Okay, good morning.
Thank you for having me. I'm actually in the middle of an accounting class right now. But again, my name is Marcus Mitchell, and I teach principles of finance, business economics, entrepreneurship, and principles of accounting at the NAF Academy of Finance at KIPP DC College Preparatory High School. The NAF Academy aims to prepare students after high school for careers in finance through a rigorous career-focused curriculum. Students gain real-world experience in this program through work-based learning opportunities and engagement opportunities with business professionals, setting the stage for college success and rewarding careers. Our program is a partnership between KIPP DC and the National Academy Foundation, which is NAF, and a variety of business partners who help our students to connect their classroom learning with invaluable real-world experiences. Since its inception, in 2018, our academy has grown from a cohort of 40 students to now serving well over 130 students. I want to thank you all for holding this hearing and expanding access to literacy courses for students across the district. I've seen firsthand how impactful these courses can be if structured correctly, and I hope that I can share my experience today so that you can enact a pilot model that could build on our success here at KIPP DC. I've carefully reviewed the list of topics proposed in this bill to be included in the SBOE financial literacy standards, and for the most part, they align with my course curriculum currently. I would suggest adding standards around the different types of investments, profitability, ways to promote wealth generation, and business cash flow, since all are topics that significantly would increase student understanding of financial systems and businesses. I would also question whether it makes sense to include standards around taxation, Social Security, and retirement, since those concepts may better fit in a life skills course rather than a financial literacy course. However, I overall endorse the existing list and believe that it would provide teachers with the roadmap to create an engaging course that could help students better understand how to navigate financial institutions. I've already provided both the offices of the State Superintendent of Education and the Deputy Mayor of Education with copies of my syllabus and curriculum to use in their preparation for a potential pilot course, and I'm happy to forward that along to others who might be interested. Beyond the curriculum, I do have a few suggestions for how to structure the course so that it is most successful. First and foremost, make it an elective, not a graduation requirement. At KIPP DC College Prep, all students may elect to join one of our 2 academies after their freshman year. We have the finance as well as an IT program here. By structuring this as an elective, we build buy-in into the learning. We also ensure that this course will never become an impediment to graduation. Finally, treating this as an elective, the schools will not offer it unless they have a teacher in place who is prepared to take it on. Requiring financial literacy courses that are filled with students who do not want to be there and teachers who know little about the subject with student graduation on the line seems like a recipe for very limited learning. Secondly, allow public charter schools to opt into the pilot if we choose. If the purpose of the pilot is to learn enough about the implementation of financial literacy courses to offer them more broadly throughout the district, it would be helpful to have public charter schools participate, since our approach to course offerings, scheduling, teacher hiring, and curriculum development are all different from that at DCPS. Consider dual enrollment courses to increase access. And this year we're piloting, at University of Pennsylvania, a dual enrollment Essentials of Personal Finance course with 10 of our students through a partnership with Ed Equity. See, my time is running low, but while it's too new for me to share our learning, I do encourage the council to consider dual enrollment courses as part of this legislation so that schools with limited student interest and or the lack of a qualified instructor could still offer quality financial literacy courses to meet the interests of the students. Lastly, learn from existing finance academies. In addition to our program at KIPP DC College Prep, both Jackson, Reed, and Woodson have NAF Academies of Finance. That means that the district already has 3 models for the offering types of courses suggested in the legislation. There is no need to start from scratch in building this pilot. Learn from our existing knowledge, meet with our students, our instructors, and we can help you to build something better and quicker. Again, I want to thank you all for holding this hearing and prioritizing this important learning for our students. I'm proud of the work that we have done at KIPP DC College Prep to expand student offerings in this area and look forward to working with you and other agencies to share our model and further increase access. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. John Batsakis? Is he here? Yes.
Chairman Mendelson, and thank you to the committee for allowing us to be here. The Maryland DC Credit Union Association represents 30 plus credit unions in the district, and there are over 300,000 members, and appreciates the opportunity to testify. Credit unions are member-owned, not-for-profit financial cooperatives whose mission is to educate and help members achieve financial well-being. Since our founding, credit unions have been vocal supporters of financial literacy for all. Virtually every credit union's mission statement will include something to the effect to increase knowledge and ability of our members to manage the control of their financial well-being. Our goal isn't simply to offer great products, services, and rates, but credit unions have always been focused on helping their members and communities become confident in their abilities to manage their finances. For our part, the association and member credit unions have engaged in various financial literacy programs. Some of those are actually branches in schools. Personally, as an employee of a credit union, I've spoken thousands of hours to thousands of students on financial literacy and a lot of these issues that are brought up. But credit unions specifically have focused on financial literacy fairs, which are in-person simulations, and they're events for high schoolers to focus on their financial success by finding out firsthand what it's like to live within their means. Students will choose a career, and that will determine their monthly salary and estimated college debt. They visit stations to budget for their food, clothing, housing, transportation, and other basic needs. But in addition to that, they're also posed with other challenges, such as for their expendable income, such as could be vacations, electronics, a variety of things. And then at the end of the program, students are asked to go through budgets with financial counselors who are actually employees of the credit union. Over 6,000 students have taken advantage of this, with over 15 credit union reality fairs, both in DC and in Maryland. For instance, in Maryland, it's a required, the class is required by several counties. It's optional in other counties, but several counties use reality fairs as a way to do that. In addition, there's a Millionaires Club, which is a complete financial skills program that's designed to be delivered in a club-like setting. But again, that's a voluntary opportunity for students and the school to provide. So for a variety of reasons, one, it is our mission, it is our focus to help consumers and communities to make sure that they have financial well-being for all. And by having a program like this, not only that it's optional, but if it's also required, will help provide students and our young professionals and our young people the opportunity to have the tools they need to survive when they graduate. And to be exposed to these things will be another opportunity that gives them the experience, the background, and the knowledge of what to look out for to avoid financial pitfalls. So for those reasons, we endorse this and look forward to working with the council in any way we can.
Thank you very much. Jemiah Bradley.
Good morning, Chairman Mendelson and members of the council. I hope all is well. My name is Jemiah Bradley, and I'm a double major in accounting and economics with a law concentration at the illustrious North Carolina A&T State University. I am also a proud KIPP-DC alum who served as the president of the NAF Academy of Finance at KIPP College Preparatory. I am in favor of Bill 24-81, and I hope that you will give this bill your favorable vote. If passed, this bill will create a shift of early preparation for DC students to access the financial freedom and knowledge before and post-graduation. As mentioned before, I served as the first president of the NAF Academy of Finance at KCP. This program launched in 2018, starting with only 40 students, becoming the first finance program in the District of Columbia, which now serves over 130 students. As a NAF student, you will be in the program for 3 years, starting your sophomore year in high school, going through a series of different courses such as personal finance, principle of finance, business economics, accounting, and even virtual enterprise. Overall, in the NAF program, I have the opportunity to learn about the importance of finance in the work industry and even my personal life. Throughout the tons of material I was taught in this program, I was strictly focused on the courses and experience that have allowed me to excel in financial literacy. One of the first courses that I took in the NAF program was the Principle of Finance. And in my opinion, I believe this is the most important course for students in the program, being that the material varied in financial skills and practices that were taught that we use in our daily lives. Here, we learned a basic understanding of credit cards, debit cards, loans, interest rates, managing our money, banking, and even understanding the stock market. Though I came into NAV without a full understanding of what the program offered, I knew as a young adult I wanted to be financially free, but didn't know how. This program gave me the opportunity of an understanding for students like me who were desperate to learn about the finances to be better prepared in their adult age. While moving through the Principle of Finance course, one thing that stuck out to me was the grit and value students had for the class. When we learned something new and understood the concept, we were able to apply it and find it useful. This in turn helped us This intern helped us in our personal lives as well. For example, once we learned about credit cards and different credit card company bureaus, we applied for one. Once we learned how to read and understand the stock market, we began trading. Once we learned about different types of banks, we opened our own savings and checking accounts. When we started to apply those actions, we valued the program even more. We're eager to come back every day with the mindset to have control over our own finances, causing the program to excel. Now in college, I still use all of my experience and knowledge from the NAV program to manage my finances because of my proficiency in financial literacy. Though it's still in progress, I am proud and comfortable to say, amongst my peers in college, I am more experienced when it comes to financial literacy. As you can see, I gave you a few reasons why Bill 24-81 will be beneficial to implement in DC public schools. I am a true example. If we teach the youth now, it will prepare them or give them a head start on financial literacy. By passing this bill, you will be provided the knowledge that comes from this access to a financial literacy course. I remember saying in high school, I wish all students had the opportunity to be in this course. I remember teachers in high school saying, I wish I would have had a class like this in high school. And my mother still reminds me, you are blessed to have the experience you did in high school. All of those wishes and looks can be eliminated in the next generation of financial literate students if in favor of Bill 24-81. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bradley. Kunyi Booth.
Good morning, Chairman Mendelson and members of the Committee of the Whole. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. I am Kune Booth, and I'm honored to serve as the principal of Friendship Technology Preparatory Academy in Ward 8. Friendship is the largest LEA in the District of Columbia and serves nearly 5,000 students in schools located in Wards 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And my school currently serves 358 of the best high school students in the district. I must say that I absolutely love my job, and I'm always excited to work with my community who are looking for ways to improve their education and the post-secondary life of our scholars. One of the major hindrances in scholar success after high school is being financially illiterate. We pride ourselves in our 100% college acceptance rate, but as an LEA in the District of Columbia, we could be providing our graduate with another essential tool in their toolbox, such as financial literacy. This is an integral part of the survival for our scholars and their families. I certainly want our scholars to be financially literate before they begin filling out applications for student loans and credit cards. This year, for the first time, Friendship Tech Prep Academy is offering scholars an entrepreneurship class with a financial literacy component. This work is so important and so close to my heart that I am teaching it myself. Over the years, many of my scholars have requested to have a financial literacy course at Friendship Tech Prep Academy. They want this course because they want to have an understanding on how they can build habits in saving money. We had an opportunity 3 years ago to partner with UDC to pilot a college-level financial literacy course. The adjunct professor came to Tech Prep to teach the course. Not only did all of the scholars who were enrolled successfully pass the course, but they developed a financial plan for college, which was a huge benefit from this course. During the pandemic, the scholars were able to execute their plan, and then many of them launched their business. Some of the scholars still have a flourishing business in college, and this is from the skills that they have learned from the pilot financial literacy course. It is so critically important for our scholars to be able to manage money and understand the value of a dollar without depending on their parents. In order for our scholars to compete globally, they will have to have financial literacy skills. So I'm here to support the legislation that ensures students from across Washington, D.C. have access to high quality and unbiased instruction in financial literacy. As I talk to other educators from across our campus and across our network, I repeatedly hear that these financial literacy lessons are key items that they wish they had learned when they were in high school. Oftentimes, they would speak about this curriculum course would have a fundamentally changed that will have fundamentally changed their trajectory of their lives. We owe it to our scholars to prepare them to make great choices about money and finance. As you contemplate on this bill and what might follow the pilot program you are considering, I would ask that you consider these 3 recommendations. Please provide flexibility to implement standards in an existing course instead of a new standalone course. For Friendship Tech Prep Academy, it would be great to integrate new standards into our entrepreneurship class rather than creating an additional class. Please provide the opportunity for public charter schools like Friendship to participate in this pilot. And finally, please allocate funds for implementation so that schools can compensate teachers fairly for their additional efforts. I'm sure we would agree that any good financial literacy course will teach students that they should demand to be paid fairly for their time and expertise. And we must demonstrate this principle in the way we treat teachers who will deliver this new content. I'm happy to answer any questions and to share more information about the work we are doing here at Friendship Tech Prep Academy. And if you consider yourself an entrepreneur or know an entrepreneur who wants to give back to the community, please let me know. I'm always looking for guest speakers in my class.
Thank you, Ms. Booth. Next, we will hear from Susan Bestranson. If she is here. I don't see her. Anthony Graham. Yes, there you are.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Chairman Mendelson, committee members, and staff. Thank you all for allowing us the opportunity to provide testimony today. My name is Anthony Graham, and I am an associate broker in Washington, D.C., and a member of the D.C. Association of Realtors, DCAR. DCAR and our over 3,000 members are a voice for real estate professionals, small housing providers, homeowners, and renters who live and work in the district. DCAR takes pride in our members' ability to help home buyers and sellers, renters, and property owners through the process of making important decisions about housing. Everyone comes to the table with a different range of financial knowledge. Our clients possessing a foundational understanding of personal finances at the outset can be very valuable to navigating the housing path that they choose. As realtors, we see firsthand the difference an individual's knowledge of personal finance can make with regards to housing and housing decisions. Homeownership can be a path to financial stability and wealth building for many families, and we believe in increased financial literacy will better position today's students to be future homeowners if they so choose. In 2015, according to the National Center for Education Statistics, 69% of students enrolled in college in the fall immediately following high school completion. This means that 31% of the remaining students are entering the workforce directly after high school. Their students often are faced with situations where they would have to manage their daily finances and expenses. Further, those moving on to post-secondary education are not offered many opportunities to learn personal finance. Personal finance education in high school will equip students with the knowledge and skills to manage financial resources effectively that will result in a lifetime of financial well-being. Overall, the realtor community works hard to meet our clients' needs. And that is why we know that today's students, our potential clients, are best served with more information. This legislation will help establish a vital familiarity with finances for DC students and could help protect students in the future from predatory practices. It may also shed light on a wide array of financial institutional offerings, college aid options, and other foundational financial knowledge that often gets overlooked in preparing our students for adulthood. DCAR looks forward to continuing to support this legislation as we believe implementing a financial literacy curriculum to our young students is in the public interest. We're happy to answer any questions and appreciate you affording us the time to share our association's perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. The next speaker is Joseph Vaughn.
Good morning, Chairman Middleton, Councilmember
Yeah.
White, and members of the DC Council. My name is Joseph Vaughn. I'm honored to offer testimony today on the importance of financial education in the District of Columbia. I currently serve as the chairman of the Board of Directors for the Capital Area Asset Builders, vice chair of the Board of Directors for the United Planning Organization, and formerly served as chair of the DC Financial Literacy Council from 2014 to 2016. Although I'm honored to serve as a board member for CAB and UPO, I'm solely testifying today as a citizen, homeowner, and taxpayer in the District of Columbia. The District of Columbia is the amalgamation of countless cultures, languages, neighborhoods, ethnicities, and demographics. It is a city of tremendous wealth, educational achievement, and economic potential for some, while others desperately cling to a patchwork of public and private sector support to overcome hunger, unemployment, and homelessness. Long-term district residents have witnessed the city transform and modernize into a community of expensive homes, condominiums, new public schools, and retail growth. Former food and banking deserts are now replete with options in some cases, but those economic gains also mask a stark reality for too many district residents. The city has become unaffordable for far too many families to achieve a good quality of life. That disparate reality faced by certain communities in the district is exemplified by the ecosystem of alternative banking and financial services providers who in some cases profit directly from the inexperience and financial illiteracy of our citizens. Payday lenders, check cashing business, pawn shops, and liquor stores are service providers who are integral to the financial survival of our city's most financially vulnerable residents. Unfortunately, and all too often, the financial products and services, fee structure, and guidance provided to consumers by these businesses constitute a structural impediment to wealth creation in our city. The DC Council, Bowser administration, and past administrations have invested in countless programs and tools designed to empower and improve the lives of vulnerable DC residents. I believe persistent poverty remains because the district has not sufficiently coupled the development of financial literacy and capability skills to the delivery of financial support services. The district must develop strategies that mirror the key moments of financial vulnerability for consumers. I congratulate Councilmember White, members of the council, and the DC Financial Literacy Council for their solutions-based approaches to these issues. These challenges will require a multifaceted approach that touches citizens throughout their life cycle. K through 12 education is the most important pathway to alter the trajectory of financial literacy and capability for DC families of today and tomorrow. Efforts to amend the Financial Literacy Council Establishment Act of 2007 to establish a financial literacy education program are laudable. The establishment of a pilot financial education course that measures performance and establishes core content is a critical and necessary objective. I am concerned that an overly prescriptive approach might result in a curriculum that overwhelms both educators and students. Therefore, I encourage the district's leaders to work in concert with the DC Financial Literacy Council, OSSI, and financial education stakeholders to design both an entry-level course that focuses on the fundamentals of financial literacy, credit scores, budgeting, and the use of credit, for example. This course can serve as a prerequisite for a secondary course that focuses on financial capability and understanding of how to apply the base knowledge and leverage it for financial well-being. I also encourage the inclusion of fintech and cryptocurrencies into the curriculum. There are long-standing curriculums adopted by other states and school systems the district can leverage and replicate to reduce the cost and time horizon of implementation. While the proposed course would be an elective, I believe policymakers can dramatically enhance student participation and outcomes by incentivizing participation through grants, gift certificates, or other tangible benefits, which would motivate students to successfully complete the course. Similar strategies have proven successful for employers and public school systems across the United States. The district should also leverage the DC Summer Youth Employment Program as an opportunity to promote financial education for high school students, as the program serves as the first job and paycheck for many students. Fostering a better understanding of debit transactions and the benefits of a bank account to facilitate receipt of payroll and payments for goods and services are a critical life lesson. Finally, the implementation of a financial literacy graduation requirement will likely lower graduation rates in the short run, but will prove more successful if calibrated to ensure the requirement builds on K through 12 education experiences, such as lessons on needs versus wants, and math and history-based approaches to financial literacy. Thanks again for your consideration of these important issues, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. Next, we will hear from Jeffrey Banks, who's the chair of the DC Financial Literacy Council.
Good morning, Chairman Mendelson, Councilmember White, committee members and staff. I'm Jeffrey Banks, Chairperson of the District of Columbia Financial Literacy Council and Vice President of United Bank in the District of Columbia. Appreciate the opportunity to appear today to discuss Bill 24-81. The District of Columbia Financial Literacy Council was created by the Financial Literacy Council Establishment Act of 2008. The purpose of the Financial Literacy Council is to assist and advise the mayor and the council and the District of Columbia and promoting the financial literacy of district residents. The Financial Literacy Council's mission is threefold. Number one, to empower residents to achieve short and long-term financial goals. Number two, assist and advise the mayor and the council of the District of Columbia in promoting financial literacy in the District of Columbia. And three, facilitate the coordination of public and private financial literacy and education services. Mayor Bowser's fiscal year 2022 budget made investments that supported our efforts to deliver on our mission, which has become even more vital in the face of the worldwide COVID-19 pandemic. The Financial Literacy Council remains committed to educating and empowering district residents and consumers, which is consistent with the mandate established in the authorization legislation. The Financial Literacy Council meets quarterly, typically on the third Thursday of January, April, July, and October. Meetings are open to the public, and participating organizations are encouraged to share meeting notices with their members and clients. Attendees are provided a platform to identify themselves and any issues they may have related to financial education. Residents are encouraged to offer input, create relationships, solicit assistance from service providers and stakeholders. The 2021 DC Financial Literacy Council Core Recommendations Report, upon publishing, was provided to the council, advisory neighborhood commissions, DC Public Schools, and the DC Charter Public Schools and other stakeholders. The report, which represents Mayor Bowser's ongoing commitment to creating a pathway to financial freedom for district residents, is produced to reflect the needs and aspirations of district residents, changes in the financial literacy landscape, and new programmatic opportunities. The 2021 report highlighted several key recommendations for further improvements in financial literacy. Specifically, the report recommends that the integration of financial literacy and DC Public Schools curriculum at all grade levels, including a financial literacy course as a high school graduation requirement, strengthening the implementation of financial literacy programming and resources for returning citizens, promoting financial capability training and wealth management training in the workplace, and the production of an annual financial literacy resource guide. We believe the recommendations will provide district residents with the skills and the actionable steps to not only improve their financial literacy, but also the quality of life through greater financial security. Along with the recommendations, the council's report includes specific action steps that can help the district move forward with implementation of each of the recommendations. Several of these recommendations are already being explored by DSBE for enactment, including the creation of the Financial Literacy Resource Guide slated for distribution later this year. Specific actions items from the report include collaborating with OSSE, DC Public Schools, and DC Charter School Board to identify learning standards for financial education courses and identifying existing courses for consideration that include information on saving, investing, banking, insurance, credit, and home ownership. Additionally, identifying professional development resources and coordinate teacher training and participation with OSSE, DC Public Schools, and DC Charter School Board. It's imperative to stress the importance of a collaborative effort to bring financial literacy resources to the students in a measured and thoughtful way and allow the subject matter experts to be a part of the solution. Providing such broad topics areas in the bill does not allow for the educational experts to take into consideration all the educational standards, appropriate learning models, and student engagement. In reviewing the bill put forward, it is important that there be a collaborative and cross-partner approach be considered in the development of any class and educational requirements for students. Additionally, it is important to note that financial literacy education can happen all year round in multiple ways. For example, the Marion Berry Summer Youth Employment Program that's run by Disney's Bank on DC program provides multiple educational touch points for participants at particular times for them to learn about money when they're getting paid. In addition to my work with the DC Financial Literacy Council, I also serve on the DC Career and Technical Education Network Industry Partner Advisory Board. This board works collectively with OSSI and industry experts to expose students to financial careers and financial services and provide financial literacy information while the students hold both summer and year-round internships. These are just examples of the work that has already taken place to incorporate financial literacy and education in the lives of district residents. It is extremely important that we highlight the work that has taken place already and look for other ways to tangibly provide resources to not only students, but also the families in their communities at large. The DC Financial Literacy Council stands ready to assist in the efforts to bring equitable access of financial literacy and resources to all district residents. In closing, I would like to thank you, Chairperson Mendelson, for your leadership and appreciate the opportunity of the Financial Literacy Council's activities and our plans for innovation and improvement. I look forward to working with the committee, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. I let you go over because you are the chair of the Literacy Council and your testimony was helpful. Natural Premier. I don't see Natural Premier. Ed Lazier.
Good morning, Chairman Mendelson, other members of the committee. Nice to see you. Thanks for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Ed Lazier, and I am the Director of Legislative Advocacy at United Planning Organization, or UPO. UPO is the district's community action agency, and it has been working since 1962 to improve the economic security of DC residents with low incomes. We currently offer more than 30 programs and services in areas such as childhood education, early childhood education, youth development, job training, health and wellness, housing, and more. I'm here today to testify in support of the Financial Literacy and Education Amendment Act. All of us need to be more financially literate, given the financial complexity of our economy and knowing how easy it is for people to be drawn into risky financial arrangements, such as loans they cannot afford. We all grew up learning the phrase caveat emptor, let the buyer beware, and financial literacy education is critical to ensuring that all of us actually are informed and careful consumers and can beware. Financial literacy education is especially important to people with low incomes and from marginalized communities because they are most financially insecure and because they often are targeted by bad actors. For example, the mortgage crisis of 2008 that triggered a global recession was fueled by companies pushing risky mortgages on people who could not afford them. Black homeowners in particular were affected, and the median net worth of Black households fell by half as a result of the Great Recession. On the positive side, providing financial literacy education can arm people to make smart financial decisions, take advantage of the right financial opportunities, and use the resources they have to improve their lives. Financial literacy is empowering, gives people agency, and promotes economic security. And we see this at UPO every day. Our work includes helping residents prepare their taxes for free, including educating residents with low incomes on the full range of tax benefits available to them. We also help DC residents become first-time home buyers, and that includes education around money management, responsible use of credit, building savings, and securing an affordable mortgage. We know at UPO that the path to first-time home ownership requires a sophisticated level of financial knowledge, and it's much easier when people have a foundation in finance basics. This experience leads UPO to be supportive of this bill and its goal to provide financial literacy education opportunities to DCPS students. While we think all students should receive this education, we agree with the bill's provision to make the classes optional and not mandatory. We also think it's fine to limit the course for now to 11th and 12th graders as a pilot so that an age-appropriate curriculum can be developed. But we also hope over time that this bill leads to a broader curriculum on financial literacy that includes middle school students. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Lazier. And I don't have a copy of your statement. Have you submitted it?
I have not, but I will email it soon.
Thank you. Everyone else, everyone who testified, I believe I do have their statements. I have a few questions, but actually, let me see if Council Member Robert White said he had another hearing. I don't see him still here. I made some notes in the order of people testifying. I don't have questions for everybody, but let me begin with Mr. Sherrill. You noted in your testimony that NGPF received a grant in September from Michael Jordan to expand personal finance courses in 6 of the nation's largest majority-minority school districts. Is DCPS one of them, or how does this help DC? I'm not sure I see Mr. Sherrill still here. Christian Sherrill? Maybe we will come back to that.
Sorry, Chairman Mendelson, I had to step away for a second.
My question, did you hear my question?
I did not, sorry.
In your testimony, you said NGPF received a grant in September from Michael Jordan to expand personal finance courses in 6 of the nation's largest majority-minority school districts. And my question is DCPS one of them, or how does this help the district?
Yeah, so a couple of ways. We're still considering expanding that series of partnerships. DCPS didn't apply in the initial round. Those that did apply were New York City. Sorry, I'm coming off of a tough head cold. New York City, 2 districts in North Carolina that are moving forward with implementing a personal finance graduation requirement, a district outside of Atlanta, and I'm forgetting one, but we are continuing to add new partnerships in that program. It's called the Financial Equity and Empowerment Program. Essentially, the way it works is we help districts hire personal finance specialists at the district level who can help coordinate, sharing resources with educators, help get educators, enrolled in professional development so that they're feeling confident and well prepared to teach the course, and just generally coordinating all of the efforts around personal finance education within that district. We've had a lot of success with it. Our first district that we started with was Milwaukee Public Schools in Wisconsin, and they've gone from starting a pilot personal finance course in just a couple of their high schools in Milwaukee till now. I believe there are 17 high schools teaching a personal finance class, starting from humble beginnings, but really expanding from there. And it's built this incredible buzz that's now, really helping a whole lot of students. DC Public Schools is doing a lot in financial education. There are 7 of the high schools that offer a personal finance course already. And so to me, this is about ensuring, maybe I'm not qualified to make statements on this per se, but to me, this is about ensuring that every student has access to this course, not just the students who are in the schools that already have it. It's about, closing that gap. And we can certainly help with that. And if DC Public Schools were interested in partnering with NGPF on the financial equity and empowerment side of things, we would certainly like to start that conversation.
How much money are we talking about? If they were to apply, they would receive some money or just some personnel assistance?
Yeah, so we fully fund it. It's a 3-year program, and it depends on, the pay scales within the district, because the employee in that program is an employee of the district. So, it's ranged from, it's full salary and benefits for that, person, in addition to, extra dollars to help, set up the professional development and resource sharing opportunities. So it's quite comprehensive, but it's a 3-year program.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's helpful. I appreciate that. I had a question for Mr. Booth. In your testimony, you said a better approach to ensuring all DC students have the financial literacy skills required to make the best adult decisions is by embedding important finance topics like the one written into the draft legislation throughout students' secondary academic careers. Can you just elaborate on that more?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, one, in DCPS testimony, they sort of talk about their approach to offering the skills that are required throughout their career, right? And I think it's just one thing that even I, as a teacher of 7th grade math, found that when I engaged our students in personal finance related topics, it helped them not only, one, have better sense of like, oh, what is personal finance, but also it helped them understand their better math skills, and they got better at pre-algebra. They got better at adding, subtracting fractions, decimals, and percents. So I think it is what we have learned through other schools is embedding this stuff, well, because kids are interested in it, and putting it into the curriculum in other areas, in math, into social studies, would be a better approach to making sure that, one, it's allowing students to actually take the content and skills that they're learning and apply it to something that they care about.
Thank you. Marcus Mitchell. So you teach this stuff.
Yes.
Now, some of the witnesses today said, we fully support this, this should be mandatory. And some of the witnesses said, we fully support this, it should be elective. You made a point of this should be elective, not a graduation requirement.
Correct.
Can you explain that more?
Just because, as I mentioned about buy-in, right? If students are interested in the program or in a finance program, then they should opt into it or be able to opt into it. I think when you mandate that students do it, then you have to ensure that you have a quality teacher who can teach it. And if you make it a requirement, I just feel that, again, it sort of limits the learning that could happen.
Well, if I don't know what I don't know, I may not think that what I don't know is important.
So you're saying anything is better than nothing at all?
Well, I wouldn't have put it quite that way, but I mean, if the name of your course was how to make $1 million in 3 weeks, maybe everybody would sign up for it. But otherwise, there might be folks who stay away from it. And I think the testimony here is pretty universal that financial literacy is important.
Agreed. Yes. I mean, I believe that every kid should be exposed to it. Every kid should want to take financial literacy. But as I think about the courses that we teach here, right? Principles of Finance, that is a general finance course where you're teaching about credit and debt, you're teaching budgeting, you're teaching certain skills. Those skills, yes, everybody should have. But then when you get into particulars like economics or accounting, which I also teach, how beneficial is accounting for a student who wants to major in political science? So I think depends on how deep we're taking this, in terms of what should be mandated and what should be an elective.
Fair point. Although I'm thinking I have a political science degree and I enjoyed the accounting courses that I took.
Well, I was just using that as an example, right? But what they want to major in theater. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you made the point. Thank you. I see Mr. Vaughn has his hand up and I had a question for him anyway. Mr. Vaughn?
Yes, sir. Just with respect to the graduation mandatory requirements for graduation, my concern emanates from the fact that roughly 60% of U.S. high school students graduate from high school. I think what's really critical is if there is a mandatory requirement, that you really build it into the system in a way that students meet the requirement over time. And so, particularly in the District of Columbia, my concern would be, in the short run, the next 3 to 5, 10 years post-implementation, what would happen to those students? But if you place the requirements sufficiently far out, it would allow students in elementary and to sort of build that knowledge base and achieve those requirements over time. Therefore, it's not sort of a last second requirement interjected into the process.
Are you making a point similar to what Mr. Boots said about embedding this in different courses, or?
Absolutely, a little bit of both, because I think particularly when it comes to mathematics, you can sort of look at calculating interest rates. I think there's ways that you can build into the math curriculum the fundamentals of understanding finance, interest rates, and how they apply to borrowing, balancing check accounts. So there's just ways that you can do it, so it's not a one-off course, but I support both approaches.
Okay, while I have you, you had in your statement, but you skipped over this.
Yeah.
The district must consider a requirement that all earned income tax credit refunds be wired to a bank account. There are a fair number of people who are bankless. I think that's what we call them.
Yes.
And then I think there's some who have a bank account, but it's kind of pretty sketchy. And by that, I mean, it's not much. So I don't know that wiring makes sense, but we've made some reforms to the EITC. And that's what sparked my interest. Could you say more?
Well, I first fully support the changes that the district has made to the EITC. I altered my testimony to ensure I made the 4-minute deadline. So yes. Earned income tax credit is just one of those critical opportunities where financially vulnerable citizens have this opportunity to have a significant boost to their income. I think it's really an important moment in that so much there's a lot of monies that are lost due to fees associated with taking early payment. I think also when tax refunds are provided on a debit card, ultimately that's just not an ineffective way to save. I do recognize that the citizens are underbanked, but I think it's one of those important moments that you could drive better banking performance, get folks banked if you did use that moment to leverage it as a sort of a learning opportunity. Because I think certainly what will happen is that taxpayers, if they know that their future EITC tax refunds will be required to be submitted to a bank account, that they're likely to maintain those accounts year over year. And therefore, I just think it's a more sustainable way for them to participate in the financial system.
We've restructured the payment so that it's, I think beginning this year, might be next year, I think it's this year, that the payments are spread out over 12 months.
That's a great approach.
It becomes almost like a guaranteed income. If I'm eligible for $6,000 EITC payment, and I think that's the maximum, that would be for a family really, then that means I get a $500 check a month.
Well, I congratulate you on that approach. I just believe that it's just critical that the form that they receive those payments of monies in is critical to their to sustaining wealth creation.
Good point. Let me ask. I think it was Mr. Patsakis, if you're still here.
Yes, I'm here.
You mentioned financial literacy fairs and a Millionaires Club. Are any of those happening in the district?
Yeah, we've done both in the district in the past. It's over the past several years. It's actually become part of the curriculum out in Western Maryland, as they actually have it as a requirement for graduation versus optional. But again, those are programs that are voluntary to participate in, and while they're great events, it doesn't provide the it's a great complement to a course, as opposed to being the course, if that makes sense. I think but it's been a great programs, great feedback. We get a lot of feedback from families, from the students, especially when they have to sit there and kind of go through a budget and understand, where they're at. And the biggest question we get often is, well, how come I have student loan debt that I have to pay for? So it's just, the simple basics that a lot of these students, and they're usually juniors or seniors, that they haven't had exposure to.
Are you familiar with the Your Achievement Launchpad program?
I'm not.
All right, it's somewhat similar. Let me keep moving. I had a question for Ms. Booth. In your testimony, you said, finally, please allocate funds for implementation so that schools can compensate teachers fairly for their additional efforts. I'm not sure I understand. I mean, schools get money for teachers. If we say that you have to work financial literacy into existing math programs, why would we give you additional funds?
Because as far as already, yes, you're right. Teachers do already get paid, but if there's any additional funds or we can add to that, or coming up with a very scripted lesson, because teachers, it shouldn't be something different that they always have to do or something additional that they have to do, even if it was scripted lessons, that would be great to have some type of funds. So there is to help them with the buy-in with teachers to execute the financial literacy curriculum.
Okay, I think I'll leave it at that. Let me see what other questions I have. I had one question for Mr. Bennett.
Yes.
I didn't understand this statement. It was in a paragraph that begins, it's imperative to stress the importance of a collaborative effort. But then you said this, providing such broad topic areas as in the bill does not allow for the educational experts to take into consideration all the educational standards, appropriate learning models, and student engagement. So the bill talks about things like, I'm looking for the bill right now. Debit cards and their uses, interest and credit, credit history and credit score, savings and investing. Why is that too prescriptive?
Well, I wanted to make sure that we are inclusive, and I'm glad that this hearing had such a groundswell of different stakeholders that are involved with the legislation, because I believe it's important that we have a buy-in. I was listening to Mr. Marcus Mitchell talk about the reluctance of having it mandatory. And my concern is that we get input from all of the stakeholders, or as many as possible, and see how can we work together to put this bill to make it more inclusive and have more buy-in. For instance, the DC Financial Literacy Council, we have probably over about 25 different stakeholders that provide free financial education. And we're in the different schools, and I think it's important to get more the schools to reach out if they don't have a subject expert in the schools to go ahead and to reach out to these other organizations. They could come on and find out who's doing what, could come in and provide career days and a lot of other things. I just think that it's important that there's a buy-in and it's a collaborative. And I see with this hearing that other people have been able to participate. I just didn't want it to be legislation that didn't have the concerns and the input from the stakeholders in the schools.
Okay, all right. I'm out of questions, but I see Mr. Shell, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just had a quick comment on the sort of pushback from various stakeholders with regard to offering this as a standalone course versus embedding it within other courses. There's a very large body of research now over several years that shows when state legislatures or state departments of education require that schools embed personal finance instruction within other content areas, economics, for example, or math, for example, only about 38% of students receive any instruction in personal finance at all. Why that is, there are a couple of potential reasons. That the number one that I can think of looking back to my classroom was when mandates to add a couple extra standards and a couple extra lessons, a couple extra skills here, a couple extra lessons there. When those mandates came down on me as a teacher, my courses were already jam-packed with all of the standards that were, kind of the baseline standards for my course. The chances that I would have the time, even if I had the passion to, add those standards in, the chances that I would have the time to add them in is just, close to zero. It doesn't, I'm not, I'm not unique. I'm sure there are teachers like Josh Boots here on the line is talking about like the passion that he's bringing to this content area and bringing it into 7th grade math, if I heard correctly, right, Josh? Yeah. So there are educators out there who are, bringing that passion. But the truth is, implementation of embedded instruction in financial literacy has been slipshod. It's been not implemented in even a majority of schools, and so I just want folks to be aware of that research out there. I'm happy to send it along as well. Something to be aware of.
Would you send some of that to the committee, please?
Sure.
That would be helpful, and you've provoked a couple of folks to comment. Mr. Mitchell and then Mr. Banks.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that embedding this in different curriculums, while that may be hard to implement, as it's pointing out, like one of the things we try to do here, and we're still having some troubles, but creating cross-curricular projects, right, really help students transfer and problem solve skills like to real life, and give real life context and meaning to what they're learning here. So as it was mentioned about interest rates, right, and teaching that in algebra, or I know for us, one of the things we're trying to work with the history department in teaching about investment banking or in Black Wall Street and how that, just tying in finance into these different courses. But a lot of the legwork is done by me. And so that I can look at what are they teaching in history this year, and then I can sort of create the baseline for the project. And that's one way. I just wanted to comment and say that that's something that could be done.
Thank you. Mr. Banks, and then we're going to.
Yes, I just wanted to just state that we know that the financial education is so important for all the communities. If it could just be a priority. When I look at, as a banker, I'm on the board of DC Water. We're going to spend about $2 billion on replacing the lead pipes in the city. I deal with I'm an investor in real estate, and an investor with developers on large projects outside of the bank. And when I go into the classroom, in order to get the attention, I want to talk to those kids about DC's budget of $19 billion with expendable goods and services of $5 billion and the need to spend at least $1 billion locally. And we just don't have a pipeline of people that are creating their businesses. So I want the kids to get inspired to understand their finances so that when they go to school, they can think about, yes, it's okay to get a job, but what is the ultimate goal? Is it to start a business, to take advantage of some of the opportunities? DC has a cash collateral support program where DC will put up to $1 million in my bank to help collateralize someone's loan. And these are just so many different opportunities. And if the kids don't have a basic understanding and they don't understand the opportunities because they're coming from underserved communities, they're not connected to family members. I just think it is just really important that we make it some kind of way, if not mandatory, but just close to it, that this is a top priority, because we could change unemployment. The small businesses hire most of the people in the city are employed by small businesses. And there are just so many opportunities. And I think that we would fail our kids if we don't prepare them to step out there, because I see it every day in the bank. And I just want to make sure, that we are building a pipeline of educated kids that can be inspire their families, so that they can go ahead and create businesses and take advantage, so that we're not spending our money in San Francisco or Chicago or elsewhere, and taxpayer monies are going outside the city. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. That's going to conclude all of your testimony. I really appreciate your time and what you've had to say and suggestions. You all are dismissed. I'm not quite sure how Zoom works, as in I think you can go back to watching from the whatever the room is, and I'm going to call the 3 government witnesses. So thank you again. We will now hear from Elizabeth Ross, who is the Interim Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning in the Office of the State Superintendent of Education, otherwise known as OSTE. Dr. Jessica Sutter, who is a Ward 6 representative to the DC State Board of Education and is the president of the State Board of Education, and Corinne Colgan, who is chief of Teaching and Learning in the DC Public School System, otherwise known as DCPS. Let's begin with Ms. Ross, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairman Mendelson, members of the Committee of the Whole, and members of the listening public. My name is Elizabeth Ross. I am the Interim Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning for the Office of the State Superintendent of Education. I'm pleased to join you today to discuss Bill 24-81, the Financial Literacy Education in Schools Amendment Act of 2021. Financial literacy, as defined by the DC Code, is the ability to make informed decisions about one's personal finances based on an understanding of the principles of credit, debt, savings and investments, depository institutions, interest, and budgeting. States across the nation take very different approaches to financial literacy. Most states do not mandate students take financial literacy coursework, but in school year 2021-22, 8 states required high school students to pass a personal finance or financial literacy course to graduate. Among the states that do maintain financial literacy requirements, their requirements differ. For example, Arizona requires the state superintendent to publish a state seal of personal finance proficiency that recognizes students for achieving a high level of proficiency in financial literacy. Washington State created a public-private partnership to develop financial education grants, materials, and standards. And Maryland, which has adopted financial literacy academic standards, had their state educational agency develop an optional prototype financial literacy course and provide instructional professional development on financial literacy. According to outside research, roughly half of high schools across the nation offer a standalone financial literacy course, and approximately a quarter of high schools embed financial literacy topics within another course, such as math, economics, or advisory. DC high school graduation requirements include 4 units of English, mathematics, science, and social studies, 2 units of world languages, 1.5 units of physical education and health, and half a unit of both art and music. The district does not require course credits in financial literacy. However, graduates are required to earn 3.5 units of elective credit, and many local educational agencies include elective course offerings in financial literacy. For example, KIPP College Prep created a 3-year finance-oriented program. In 10th grade, students learn the basics of financial literacy and the function of finance in society, study income and wealth, and examine financial institutions and the role of finance organizations, including common practices and methods by which businesses raise capital. Students in this program also study key investment-related terms and concepts, including how the time value of money, explore financial topics such as risk management, and how technology is changing the financial services field, and explore careers in finance. The program expands to focus on real-world experience in 11th and 12th grades. As DCPS will share in its testimony, DCPS schools utilize a model financial literacy curriculum that provides students in kindergarten through grade 12 with financial literacy and personal finance skills. This information is taught through integrated class curriculum as well as through standalone classes. Additional models for teaching financial literacy exist across the district's LEAs. As introduced, Bill 24-81 would require the district to adopt financial literacy education standards and DCPS to develop an elective financial literacy class to be piloted in all DCPS high schools for at least 2 years. The bill limits the pilot to 11th and 12th grade students and lists what topics the education standards must minimally cover, including brokerage firms, financial institutions, Pell Grants, student loan forgiveness programs, layaway, Social Security, and more. The bill would also require DCPS to develop a student course evaluation and DCPS and the State Board of Education to jointly submit reports on the pilot program to Council in January and July of each year of the course. The legislation calls for the State Board of Education to adopt financial literacy education standards without mentioning OSSE's role in this process. Allow me to elaborate on that role in this process. Education standards establish what students should know and be able to do in a subject area at each applicable grade level. Schools and districts identify or develop curricula that will best help students meet state standards and identify or develop and implement assessments to measure student progress toward and mastery of the identified learning goals. As established in the DC Code, the Office of the State Superintendent of Education sets statewide education standards in the District of Columbia, and they are approved by the State Board of Education. The process works the same way, whether DC is adopting new standards or revising existing standards. The district should follow the same process for the creation of financial literacy standards. As a result, DC does not need legislation to adopt financial literacy standards or any other educational standards. OSSE, working with the State Board of Education, has an established process to do so. We are open to exploring the development of financial literacy education standards under our established process, which includes robust public engagement. For example, OSSE is in the middle of rewriting the district's social studies standards. Under this process, OSSE has convened a team of DC-based educators and social studies experts to ensure that the revised social studies standards enhance student knowledge of democratic principles, promote civic engagement, and are culturally responsive, anti-racist, and developmentally appropriate. We are currently working with this team to complete the social studies standards this fall. Then we will share the standards and receive feedback from national experts, the state board, and the general public through the established processes in winter 2022-23. We will edit the standards to incorporate incisive feedback and present a final draft to the State Board of Education for adoption in spring 2023. It is also important to note that we do not favor requirements that schools offer for students take financial literacy courses. Decisions on course selection, design, and curricula should be left to our LEAs in schools, as school leaders and teachers, being closest to students, are best positioned to make these decisions. We also disagree with imposing curriculum requirements solely on DCPS. Rather, we favor policies that are implemented across sectors. In addition, OSSI opposes a requirement for the State Board of Education and DCPS to jointly submit reports to Council evaluating financial literacy coursework. The State Board of Education does not play a role in the development or collection of course evaluation data, and reporting on DCPS course satisfaction is outside of the board's statutory responsibilities. Reporting requirements should live with DCPS alone. OSSI shares the council's sentiment regarding the importance of financial literacy, particularly in our increasingly complex financial world. We remain open and interested in further exploring the work that other states are doing to ensure that students have consistent and sustained access to high-quality financial literacy instruction and supports, including the setting of state standards and the development of teacher trainings and supports. Thank you for providing this platform to speak to you today on Bill 24-81. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Dr. Sutter.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I was trying to shed a little light on the situation here. My name is Dr. Jessica Sutter, and I am the President and Ward 6 representative of the DC State Board of Education. I'm pleased to be here today on behalf of the State Board to provide testimony on Bill 24-81, Financial Literacy Education in Schools Amendment Act of 2021. The bill would require the State Board to adopt financial literacy standards and submit assessment reports of the program to the DC Council biannually. I'd like to start by thanking you for holding this hearing and raising the importance of providing students access to financial literacy in schools. The State Board recognizes that financial literacy is an important aspect of preparing students for life beyond high school, and creating equitable access to instruction in financial literacy should be a priority for the district. In fact, the State Board has heard directly from students, educators, and social science professionals about the importance of financial literacy over the past several years. That being said, the State Board has concerns about the Council's purview in requiring specific educational standards for district students. As the Council is aware, the State Board was designed with very few direct powers, but among them is working with the Office of the State Superintendent of Education on the creation and approval of statewide educational standards for DC public schools and public charter schools. It is the statutory responsibility of the State Board to make decisions around statewide educational standards in the District of Columbia. I had the pleasure to serve as the previous past chair of the State Board of Education State Education Standards Committee, and I oversaw the establishment and robust work of the Social Studies Standards Advisory Committee, which we called the SISAC, which delivered a grounding document on guiding principles related to the revision of the district's social studies standards. During the initial work of the SISAC, advisory members discussed and addressed the possibility of including financial literacy as a skill within the guiding principles. However, the majority of the SISAC agreed that financial literacy did not neatly fit within the goals of the social studies standards and suggested that it would be better suited as a standalone elective or as part of the district's mathematics standards. It is the State Board's understanding that this is a common point of discussion when states are thinking about where and how to include financial literacy into statewide education standards. Community input on financial literacy has also been shared with the State Board during other occasions too. In 2018, some members of the State Board's high school graduation task force advocated for the addition of a financial literacy requirement into the district's high school graduation requirements. There, again, was robust discussion on the topic, and it is included in the task force final report. At our June 2018 public meeting, 2 high school students also testified on their work, encouraging DCPS to include financial literacy coursework for students in grades 11 and 12, and explained that financial literacy is an essential skill that students need to have before graduating from high school. As part of a recent listening tour, current SY 22-23 student representative to the State Board, China Jones Burgess, also asked her peers about their concerns and requests. One peer shared, "I definitely feel like there need to be more opportunities for scholars, such as teaching students how to be financially independent. Students don't really know about life after high school, especially if they're going to college and don't have financial backing. This can be very hard for them." Further, in 2020, our Student Advisory Committee raised concerns about post-secondary preparation and formed a subcommittee to further explore students' access to financial literacy within district schools. Our students recommended encouraging LEAs to develop financial literacy classes, as well as a professional and career readiness class to help them be better prepared for the transition into adulthood. As the only publicly elected body responsible solely for public education issues in the district, it is the state board's prerogative to ensure that we do our due diligence in listening to our community, drawing from what works and what does not work in other states, and consulting experts in order to provide guidance on what will be best for our students. I thank the members of the public who testified today on the importance of financial literacy, the various ways it can look and be implemented, and I look forward to hearing more from them on any additional information the state board should consider in this area as we consider education standards in the district. The state board is currently in the process of hiring an education standards specialist who will serve to inform and support state board members on understanding and developing best practices and processes for revising statewide education standards, including considering statewide standards for financial literacy. We ask that the DC Council grant the state board time to take on this important work in the months ahead. We understand the district's desire for more robust financial literacy opportunities and want to do that work alongside our education colleagues in the district. We thank you again for elevating the importance of financial literacy for our students and for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the state board on Bill 24-81. Again, the state board is supportive of the spirit of this bill. However, would like to remind the DC Council that the state board's statutory authority for statewide education standards is the work that you are seeking to legislate with this bill. We've discussed this with the council before, and we've been so grateful that the council has given us time to do the important work that is within our responsibility. I welcome any questions or clarification you may have at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Sutter. And Corinne Colgan.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chairman Mendelson, members of the council and staff. I am Corinne Colgan, Chief of the Office of Teaching and Learning at DC Public Schools, and I'm honored to testify before you on the topic of financial literacy education in schools and the elements of Bill 24-81, the Financial Literacy Education in Schools Amendment Act of 2021. As part of our commitment to equity in the district, we believe deeply that all students must have an understanding of basic financial principles before they graduate high school. We recognize that bridging the gap for our students furthest from opportunity begins with relevant and rigorous instruction that not only aligns with content standards, but also equips them for the realities they will face after they graduate. As I shared in my testimony during the November 2019 hearing on the prior introduced version of this bill, we know that every student deserves access to an education that builds 21st century skills and competencies. These skills allow students to positively influence society, thrive in life, and succeed in a rapidly changing global economy. Soon after the 2019 hearing on financial literacy, the COVID-19 pandemic dramatically impacted all aspects of our society, including education. While we made operational shifts around how to best deliver a rigorous and joyful education to our students during the pandemic, we continued to make significant progress around financial literacy. In our plan for financial literacy, DCPS students are exposed to financial literacy concepts across core subjects throughout their educational journey. This starts in kindergarten and progresses through high school. Because of these strides that I will share in more detail, we do not agree that this bill is necessary. However, if this bill does move forward, one area we would strongly oppose is having to submit a joint report with the State Board of Education, as the board is not in a position to develop, distribute, collect, or analyze DCPS survey data and it is outside of their statutory responsibilities to do so. We believe our current plan provides a strong foundation in financial literacy for all students and ample opportunity for deeper learning for those students who want to explore further. This approach balances ensuring student preparedness for life beyond high school with the desire to leave options in high school scheduling for students to pursue their academic passions. Maintaining multiple pathways will provide maximum flexibility for students, thus increasing ownership and engagement in their school experience. Throughout the spring and summer of 2022, DCPS developed comprehensive financial literacy standards for all students in grades K through 12. These standards, which include all the topics laid out in Bill 24-81 and many more, are the foundation of our roadmap to ensure that students develop strong financial literacy skills and have increasingly sophisticated learning experiences around financial situations throughout their time in DCPS. In grades K through 2, students consider topics in the budgeting and financial decision-making and financial institution categories. After grade 2, students engage with topics in both systemic and personal finance in all the categories and topics listed on the diagram below. Now, I'm not sure if I'm able to project the diagram. It is included in the written testimony, and I can just voice over that the topics in the diagram include budgeting and financial decision-making, which includes both earning and spending, financial institutions, including saving and investing, credit and debit, and financial information literacy, including managing risk and understanding financial information. Those are the large topics, and of course, there are standards developed under each of those. Second, DCPS has completed an audit of our K-12 curricula. I'm sorry, after grade 2, students will engage with all of these topics that I just listed below. Secondly, DCPS has completed an audit of our K-12 curricula to determine where the financial literacy topics under the bill are already covered and what gaps exist. Our students are currently exposed to roughly 15% of the financial literacy standards we have identified through core course content. Specifically, our students are exposed to financial literacy content in first grade ELA, or English Language Arts, kindergarten, first, second, third, fifth, sixth, and seventh grade math, Algebra 1 and Algebra 2, kindergarten, first, and third grade social studies, and U.S. government. Further, high school freshmen who take the elective advanced algebra with financial applications, which is currently approximately 750 students, are exposed to an additional 32% of the standards. CTE students also have access to a semester or year-long financial literacy elective that covers a majority of the grades 9 through 12 standards. 107 students at Ballou High School are currently taking the year-long course, and 650 students at 11 schools are currently enrolled in the semester course. This curriculum comes from the organization Next Gen Personal Finance. Another pathway for students' consideration is the DCPS Tenacity Professional Skills Curriculum, a program required for students participating in DCPS Career Ready internships. This curriculum contains a unit on financial literacy that provides 10 options for teachers to implement with students, including a high school financial planning program. The Tenacity Professional Skills course is also available as an elective course at all DCPS high schools. This year, 14 high schools will implement the Tenacity curriculum as a course or workshop. Even amid these opportunities.
If I can interrupt, your written statement says 10 high schools, and you just said 14.
Yes, I apologize. We did update it to 10, and you are correct about that. I apologize.
So 10 is the correct number?
10 is the correct number.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that clarification. Even amid these opportunities, we recognize gaps still exist between our current offerings and the full breadth of our newly adopted financial literacy standards. We are working to address those gaps as follows. Financial Literacy Fridays in May 2023, so this May. Students in all grade levels will experience financial literacy cornerstones that both reinforce math content standards and increase financial literacy learning. Cornerstones are a key component of our curriculum. They are highly engaging, meaningful assignments and experiences focused on critical content that all students of that grade level or course experience. Some examples of our financial literacy cornerstones include, for first graders, personal budget making. Students will use mathematical inequalities to compare prices of different items and make decisions about spending. For our fourth graders, funding our community, in which students will learn about taxes and community investment through a tax-based simulation. Eighth graders will experience spending, saving, and living. What is a fair livable wage? Students use a case study analysis to make a claim about minimum wage and the cost of living in American cities. And 11th graders will participate in an investment competition. Using data, students will advise potential investors in the best strategies for meeting their financial goals. A second key area to highlight is our new Junior Achievement Partnership. DCPS is partnering with Junior Achievement to open a facility here in DC that will allow students to experience finance, both through the 5th grade simulation of running a municipality. Students will take part in operating banks, managing restaurants, writing checks, etc., as well as the 7th grade simulation of taking on an individual's profile and making financial decisions about housing, transportation, childcare, and banking, for example, based on that individual's credit score, family size, and education background. The two experiences cover over half of the financial literacy standards in each of their respective grade bands. This facility will open in school year 25-26, and all 5th and 7th grade DCPS students will participate.
Is that the Junior Achievement Launchpad?
Yes, I believe that is what it's called. It's a facility where students go and have a live experience at the facility.
And it's going to be located on 16th Street in the old DC Rec building.
Yes, across from Columbia Heights Education Campus. Yes. We will also expand the number of cornerstones available that address financial literacy. And lastly, DCPS will revise the scope and sequence of the CTE elective course and the social studies financial elective to address a greater set of financial literacy standards beginning this spring. When all of these projects are implemented, we will have met the goal of providing all DCPS students with a comprehensive financial literacy education for all students. We want to maintain a high bar for student learning and preparedness in financial literacy while still allowing flexibility in the high school space where we already have a high number of graduation requirements. DCPS continues to invest in bold, data-driven initiatives that accelerate outcomes for our students furthest from opportunity. Every student deserves an excellent education, and DCPS remains committed to providing opportunities for students to make real-world connections through powerful lessons. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you today. I am happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Colvin. Thank you, each of you, for your testimony. So, Ms. Colgan, I'm going to start with you with this quandary. Your testimony conveys that DCPS is doing much in this field and will be doing even more in this field, and therefore this legislation is unnecessary. And yet we just heard from 15 witnesses, none of whom seemed to think that we were doing enough in public education for financial literacy. How do I square the two?
Thank you for the question. I think it is really important, for one, to recognize that perhaps not everybody is fully aware of all the work that is taking place. But also, as you named, there is much that is in development now that is coming soon. So a huge part of our financial literacy plan that we are very proud of and very excited about. We'll be launching this spring with the financial literacy Cornerstones in Financial Literacy Fridays in May. And so that is a significant body of work that we've been working on. And an important first step, which we have now completed, was to adopt our own internal financial literacy standards. So we were clear on what students were going to learn at each grade level, to also do the audit of our curriculum to see where those standards were already being met in the curriculum, and then determine the plan to fill any gaps. And so that is definitely exciting work that is in progress. And I think, as you heard several people testify, that they were pleased with the plan and the direction that we were going of both embedding the important financial literacy learning within core content areas and starting it early in a student's career and providing more authentic and experiential opportunities so that that learning is more likely to really stick with the students and they truly understand what it is that they're learning.
You mentioned that in the spring and summer of this year, DCPS developed comprehensive financial literacy standards. I think that's what you're referring to as the plan.
Well, the standards are the learnings that we want students to have outlined by grade level. And the plan is
broader than that.
Yes, how we will ensure that students have access to that learning and are successful with that.
So can you provide us with a copy of both? That would be the plan as well as the standards that were developed this year?
Yes, we can follow up with that.
And then you also indicated that beginning this coming spring, that's next year, we will revise the scope and sequence, the CTE elective courses, and so forth. How long will that take to do?
We will have revised courses available for our high school use next school year. We will probably pilot some of that, but as we have many different electives, or several different electives that touch on the financial literacy standards for students, and we will be reviewing that curriculum and providing teacher PD. And all revised elective courses will be available to all high school students in 24-25. I'm sorry, Chairman, I can't hear you. I think you may be muted. Or maybe it's just my audio. Okay.
No, that was me. I swear to you, I didn't do it either.
And I apologize. I said 24-25. I meant to say 23-24. All high schools will offer an elective course in at least one of our elective courses focused on financial literacy.
So I'm referring to the last bullet on the last page of your statement. And you said beginning in spring of 2023, and that's what will be at least one course in all high schools by the fall of 2023.
Yes.
Dr. Sutter.
Yes, sir.
So you make a couple of points, actually you make a number of points, but one of them is that the council should tread lightly because this really is the turf of the state board. But you also say that, this is a different point, you say that their financial literacy is important, not part of the social studies standards, maybe part of the math standards, maybe a standalone elective. You kind of go through different scenarios, but it kind of leaves me with, so then what do we do? And maybe the we is you, but what do we do?
It's a great question, Chairman Mendelson. One of the things that I listened carefully to the other public witnesses who shared today is that folks have a variety of ideas on how this should be done. And so I think it leaves us with some options. Again, I go back to, I think these options are best considered by the state board in collaboration with OSSI, and finalizing a process that has rich public engagement, like we did with the social studies standards to date and are continuing to do both through the public comment period. OSSI has talked about having this fall on the social studies standards before adoption in the spring of next year. I think a similar process needs to play out on this financial literacy set of standards as well. And here's why. In looking at the way some other states do it, several states have a standalone requirement for financial literacy, which would require a standalone set of standards to be written, vetted with the public, adopted by the state board. It also needs to fit into the extensive high school graduation requirements Ms. Ross laid out. Not all states that have a financial literacy requirement also have as many requirements as DC does in our state standards. I'll use as an example, Iowa, I was looking at last night. Iowa has a half credit requirement in financial literacy, but it has nowhere near the requirements that we have in social studies, science, mathematics, and physical education. So there is additional space in the state standards to insert a half credit for financial literacy in a way that is difficult for DC to sort of automatically do. So I think two things. One, I think having a process for public engagement to say, how would we include this in our standards? Does something need to be removed in order to make space for this? Or can this be slotted inside another existing subject area standard that would fit the existing requirements? I think a second thing is we should look at the best practices from other states and consider that. I don't know if council has had the chance to do that. I didn't see anything in the draft legislation that suggests that we're following sort of a model that's been set by other states. But I think that we can learn from our peers across the country and say, do any of these models look like something we could easily adopt or adapt ourselves to do? I'll end on this, Chairman. We appreciate that the council helped make possible the fact that the state board is hiring an education standards FTE to work with us, because part of the reason the state board has not yet been able to take this up is limited staff capacity. And now that we will have this staff directly responsible for education standards, it increases our ability to focus on this work. So we're grateful to the council for helping make that happen. And we look forward to this being on the docket for the state board once our standards personnel come on board.
So I have two follow-up questions. One of them is, and I mean no shade here on anybody, but after the hearing, after all this attention and focus and energy on this, how do we know this doesn't just kind of die off? With the advantage to a requirement is it doesn't die off. That's one question I have.
So let me point to some examples of when the council has brought forth an issue. The state board has asked the council not to take action, and then the state board has worked with OSSI to follow through quickly. One of those things is the attendance issue, the 80-20 rule. We came to council, we said, please don't legislate this, please let it go through the policy-making process, and it did. And the board was able to vote on adopting this. OSSI put forth both emergency and Ms. Ross will correct me if I'm wrong, and propose regulations, and then we'll have a final regulation adoption process. But we were able to do that work within several months. I think currently the state board and OSSI are working together on the high school graduation requirement around community service. So the council waived community service as a graduation requirement for 2 years during the pandemic. We're now cognizant that that waiver was temporary. We have a set of graduating seniors this year who've really been without adequate opportunities to conduct community service as one might normally because of a 2-year pandemic hiatus. And so we're working with OSSI to say, how do we best address that immediate concern for current graduating students? And what do we do with the community service requirement in a more fulsome way as a result of discussions that are taking place now? OSSI brought it to us in September. They're coming back to us in October. We expect to vote on it in November. So again, when we've asked council to take a pause on something or not to finalize a regulation, we've gone ahead and taken it up quickly. On the case of financial literacy, We have an education standards committee. We have a student representative who's a member of that committee, who is part of these ongoing discussions about the importance of financial literacy in our standards. And we have this new staff person coming on as soon as we can work through the DCHR process. We had the posting out, we got a wonderful number of qualified applicants. And now that the new fiscal year has begun, we're moving quickly to hire this person. So I'd like to say you can look at past as predictive of our future, that when we've asked you to pause on this, we've followed through quickly.
Now, let me just say, when I asked that question, I wasn't thinking only of the state board. I was thinking of OSSI and DCPS. But let me move to my second question, and that is, this stuff can take a long time. Yeah, I always feel a little bit of impatience here. So not to pick on the attendance, but I think folks have been chafing at what was the 80-20 rule for about 6 years or 8 years. Moved quickly when it got near the end, but took a long time. And how long did it take for, I guess, for the state board and OSSI to kind of work something out and then go through the process? That's probably not a year. That's probably a couple of years.
I think you make a good point, Chairman, that there are often processes that take us longer than any of us would like them to. But sometimes they take longer for good reason. I think in the case of any sort of state standards, we want to make sure that the content of the standards is reflective of what the people of the District of Columbia believe our students deserve to have access to, and that it's reflective of DC values, what we care about for our students and how we want it to be taught. We also need to know that, especially I'll say for myself, from the state board seat, there are things that sound very good when we read them on paper. And then when we socialize them with our LEAs and our teachers, we learn about a lot of things we did not realize were part of the process. So I was moved today in listening to the public testimony about qualified educators to teach this work. Right. So I'll side with everybody here and say, I too wish I had better financial literacy education during my high school years, even during my college years, to understand the kinds of things I'd be expected to do, not just as an adult, but for the past few years as a small business owner. That kind of information needs to be taught by qualified folks. So how do we find those folks amidst a national staffing shortage where schools are already struggling to make sure we have the right qualified folks in front of our students? Not only true for DC, but across the nation. And if we don't find enough qualified folks ready at the moment, how do we have adequate time to train those folks up before we're mandating that our students take these courses to graduate? I think that's another thing that I would hope we would socialize in the process, is the elective versus required option. So mandating a access to an elective seems like a really important thing for our students. Mandating that every student in every high school across the city has access to an elective seems both important and maybe even more doable than mandating that something becomes a graduation requirement. That's my thought. I'm curious to hear what our larger public thinks, what our LEAs think, what folks would say if given the opportunity to engage in a process of coming to new standards. So I know your question was, sometimes things take a long time, and how do we not let them take too long versus going through legislation which quickly requires it? I would just say, I think we would all want to move as expeditiously as is appropriate, while considering the many facets that go into actually implementing this requirement with fidelity in a way that serves our students.
That sounds reasonable, but
I always try to be reasonable, Mr. Chairman.
yes, but the goal here is to be teaching financial literacy, not to be educating our kids 5 years from now or 10 years from now. Let me move on, and that is Ms. Ross. So near the end of your statement, you said we remain open and interested in further exploring. What does that mean? I mean, how? That's really what I'm asking, is how. So this could take forever. This could just slack off.
Thanks so much for the opportunity to clarify, Chairman. I really appreciate and echo the sentiments that President Sutter shared about the importance of working deliberately and with urgency, but also ensuring that we are following a process that enables an opportunity for robust public engagement. And given the choice between moving quickly or moving forward something that is going to be of the highest quality, our team is always going to prioritize moving forward something that is going to be of the highest quality. We think that this work is important enough to get right and would prioritize that over implementing a requirement that does not have time to be fully vetted and therefore may not be well implemented by our schools and LEAs.
Fair enough. You're sounding reasonable like Dr. Sutter. But this is what just went through my mind. So we're having this hearing on October 6th, 2022. There's some things DCPS is doing, has done this year, stuff that they're doing next year. You all are willing to look at this more closely, figure out whether it's embedded in other curricula or other standards or separate, all the different issues we've been talking about. But in a way, I could say, no, actually, this hearing began in 2019, the earlier hearing on this same issue. And here we are 3 years later, and we're talking about, I'm going to put this a little harshly, we're talking about just starting to look at whether we embed this in other standards or how to go about this. Government can, the wheels can turn exceedingly slowly. So I guess that's kind of getting at my impatience question. But from your statement, we remain open and interested in further exploring.
Thanks so much for the question, Chairman. I really appreciate it. And I, would just invite the council to keep in mind that in between 2019 and present day, we have been in the process of working to recover and accelerate learning from a global pandemic. And that has rightly demanded a lot of the time of the individuals at this table as government witnesses, as well as the individuals that we heard from earlier today as part of the public witness process. That being said, the global pandemic does not make this work less important. It arguably makes it more important than it was even just a few years ago, which is why we really do remain ready and willing and open and interested to working with State Board on the established process that we have in place for standards. As Dr. Sutter shared, as I know you are well aware, Mr. Chairman, we are currently working with State Board on our social studies standards and are working deliberately to ensure that those standards are of the highest quality. When engaging in standards adoption, there are multiple different pathways that we can take as a state agency in collaboration with State Board and the input from our public policymakers, practitioners, and experts in the field. And some of those processes, like, for example, developing from whole cloth, as we are in the case of the social studies standards, can take more time than others, where, for example, we could adopt high quality standards that may be in use in another jurisdiction, or adapt high quality standards that may be in use in another jurisdiction. So I do not want to give the impression that our standards work, always takes multiple years, but it can take multiple years depending on the topic. And again, I do appreciate that in education, there is always this tension, always this balance that we are trying to strike between serving the students well who are in front of us today, for whom this is their only chance at 3rd grade or 5th grade or 11th grade, while also making sure that we are providing the systemic supports that are going to enable the work that we are doing to be well implemented. Because at the end of the day, unless our policies are well implemented, they are not going to make a difference for kids. And that is at the heart of what all of us do.
So will the social studies standards include anything touching on financial literacy?
Thanks so much for this question, Chairman. The work of the Social Studies Technical Writing Committee is underway as I speak, and that is a group of technical social studies experts as well as DC practitioners that are developing standards that make sense for DC. We are proud of their work and we are supporting them in moving forward quickly. We're investing additional resources, much as President Sutter shared, the importance of getting the right people at the table and ensuring that these projects are well resourced is just critical to keep them moving forward. Currently, the draft of the social studies standards builds on the guiding principles that State Board finalized in December of 2020. And as part of those guiding principles does include a strand of economics and economic decision making. That
you said does include or does not?
Does include in the affirmative, does include. And we think that's appropriate. Social studies is different from other content areas in that social studies is actually a collection of subjects rather than one discrete subject. And it generally includes subjects including civics, geography, economics, social sciences. Reasonable minds can differ about what those topics are and the way and the rate in which we're included, which is why we think it's so important to support our technical writing committee, our technical social studies experts, and our DC practitioners in building on the excellent work that State Board did in finalizing the guiding principles.
You gave a very long answer there. And the only part that I was interested in, with all due respect, was you said that the draft standards does include some aspects of financial literacy. I can't remember exactly what you said. It was like,
I'm sorry.
What you're working on now, what's being worked on now. You said it does include, remember I interrupted you and I said, did you say does or does not? What was it that you said it does?
Thank you for the chance to clarify. The draft standards do include in the affirmative economics and economic decision making consistent with the guiding principles.
Is financial literacy training being considered in OSFI's course code research?
Thanks so much for that question, Chairman. As you know, our pilot for that course code is underway, and we are very excited about what we are going to learn from it. We do anticipate learning significantly more about which students have access to financial literacy, and to echo an important point that President Sutter raised earlier, who is actually teaching those financial literacy courses in our schools and LEAs citywide. So the short answer to the question is yes.
Let me see what other questions I have. Ms. Colgan, in your testimony, you stated 107 students at Ballou High School are currently taking a year-long course, and 650 students at 10 schools are currently enrolled in the semester-long course. This number is far off from all graduating students. Does DCPS have a plan to address financial literacy for all graduating students?
Yes, so that our plan for ensuring all students have access to the financial literacy learning would really be the compilation of all the different components that I spoke about. So we want to ensure first that students in K through 12 have course embedded learning where they are taking the content that they're learning in their course and learning about the financial literacy applications of that content through our Cornerstones. So we are piloting those for the first time this year, and then those will be improved upon and then embedded into the core courses scope and sequence. So that is where they will get much of their learning. We also will be adding, as I mentioned, the partnership with Junior Achievement that really provides a more in-depth and experiential learning experience where students participate in curricular work at their school, which culminates in the experiences that I mentioned, where they go on site to the JA center and they have those simulations. One is about, kind of the economics and finance that run a small town or city, and the other is the more personal, where they're looking at impact of credit and things like that. So all of those together will ensure that all of our students have the access to this really critical content. In addition to that, we will offer at every high school an elective course, and we have a couple of different electives that really go more deeply into financial literacy. So we have an advanced algebra with financial applications. We have the CTE course that was referenced that is offered at Ballou and many other schools. We have within our tenacity curriculum, which is preparing students for the work world. We have components of that are units that are focused specifically on financial literacy. We also have financial pathways at 3 of our high schools that really go even more deeply, where students can study careers in finance. And those are currently at Jackson Reed, Woodson, and Luke C. Moore. And then additionally, our college and career programming, where we support students in their preparation for college, and also just for the college application process itself. We hold workshops on understanding financial literacy and understanding the financial aspects of going to and paying for college. We also have through our DCPS Persists initiative, which is where we remain connected to some of our college graduates as they're going through college. We hold an annual financial literacy workshop with them, as well as workshops on financial aid, FAFSA and loan forgiveness, provide monthly newsletters, et cetera, related to scholarships and other financial literacy topics related to paying for college. So you can see that there is a wide array of opportunities that we feel put together ensure that all of our students are getting the financial literacy learning that they need.
Just out of curiosity, who's teaching the courses at the schools where the high schools, the 11 schools?
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is, are they social study teachers or math teachers? And maybe you don't know.
Well, we have 3 main areas where we would have teachers teaching this. So one would be math teachers. For instance, as I said, the advanced algebra, financial algebra course is taught by math teachers. We have our career and technical education teachers teaching the tenacity curriculum. We also have some social studies, financial literacy elective. So it a little bit depends on the course, but it's math teachers, in some cases, social studies teachers, and career and technical education teachers.
The next gen personal finance. The witness from them testified that they had gotten this grant from the Michael Jordan Foundation. And I pressed whether DCPS was one of the beneficiaries. He said DCPS had not applied. Why not?
Yes, thank you. I also heard him testify about that, and I was very interested in that. Our partnership with NextGen is that we are using a lot of their curricular resources in our career and technical education courses that are focused on financial literacy. I furiously jotted notes about the 3-year program he was talking about, and that is definitely something we would look into because it did sound very interesting, and we would appreciate the opportunity to hire financial experts at the district level to supplement the work that we're already doing. So I personally was not aware of that particular program until today. So eager to learn more and see. I think he mentioned the opportunity was still possible. So that's something we can look into for sure.
Yeah, and that was my impression as well, that the opportunity is still possible. Are any of you aware of our neighboring jurisdictions, whether they have financial literacy requirements or explicit financial literacy courses? I'm thinking Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Fairfax, maybe even a little further afield, Baltimore. Any of you aware of what our neighboring jurisdictions are doing?
Yes, we are aware, Virginia, the state of Virginia has a requirement and in personal financial literacy. Prince George's County also has a requirement. Montgomery County does not, is my understanding.
Chairman, at the state level, we've also I looked at the work that Maryland State Educational Agency has done to develop model financial literacy coursework. Then we know that farther afield in Arizona and in Washington, there are requirements. As I shared in my testimony, as of the 21-22 school year, there are 8 states that require either personal finance or financial literacy coursework in order for students to graduate. So the N is relatively small nationwide, but there certainly are states from which DC, has an opportunity to review in depth the work that they are doing and learn.
What did you say about Maryland? I heard you say you looked at Maryland.
Indeed. So Maryland has modeled financial literacy coursework that was developed by the state educational agency. And then that model coursework may be picked up by districts, as my colleague from DCPS shared, that's picked up by some districts, but not necessarily by others.
Okay. I don't have any other questions for you all. I want to thank you again for your time. And I think somebody said, Ms. Hogan, you're going to get back to us with a couple of things.
Yes, sir. We will be sending the standards we've developed and our plans.
Thank you. And the rest of you are welcome to follow up with anything if you wish.
Great.
Thank you again for this, and thank all the witnesses earlier. Again, this has been a hearing on Bill 24-81, Financial Literacy Education in Schools Amendment Act. Record will close at 5 p.m. on Thursday, October 20th of this year, 2022. The time is 1:20 in the afternoon, and this hearing is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.